All right. Hello, everybody. I am truly blessed to bring international relations. We've got Michael, and sorry, Michael, how do you pronounce your last name? I don't want to butcher it.
Jacobs.
Michael Jacobs. That's it. Sorry, I saw the article on the farm, and I thought that was the last name. So that's it. Michael Jacobs from Minnesota. Of course, we're here in Vancouver, White Rock, BC, Canada. And we're going to talk some beef today, and something that's very close to my heart, which is the new push against farmers and the what's happening in the world. And a lot of people don't hear this on the mainstream media. So I think it's time, as much as I've been supporting local beef, local farms as much as I possibly can, I think it's really important to get stories like Michael's out there. And I'm going to let him introduce himself, and we'll go from there. Michael, tell us about you and what you do and what's going on.
So I am a grass-fed beef producer trying to stay with the grasses that God created our beef to eat. So, and staying away from as many chemicals as I basically can stay away from to keep an ancestral beef alive for healthy living and healthy beans and healthy environment, and bringing it back to the roots, basically back to the roots, the way the creator made it to be.
Nice. Yeah. And so I guess we should get into this, like to set this straight. Is like, we are a fair distance apart, and obviously two different countries, but I mean, what I've generally been warning people about is the powers that be are coming for businesses, let alone the magical nutrients that we like. Obviously a lot of people on my channel and the people that follow me are concerned about this, and they understand the value of real ancestral nutrition. And how long have you been doing it?
Oh, basically my whole life. We started when I was a little child. We started being a dairy farm, and then when the interest went crazy in the 80s, and they took out 500 some thousand farmers, small farmers, we ended up having to sell our farm. And then when I was a little kid, I started up right away, trying to get back into the farming because it was in my blood. It's in me. It's a complete miracle how I'm still farming. I'm still alive because I worked a full-time job for 25 years along with farming in order to make it work, because the bottom line is there's basically no money in it. Okay. I'm basically doing it because it's in me.
Yeah. And and I don't think we value that enough. And obviously I was actually looking yesterday when we talked about prices, and we'll get into that as a little bit. But the difference between the US prices and the Canadian prices, it's pretty mind-blowing. And I mean, even just talking about this, I was seeing how if we could ship beef from there to here. I mean, I'd love to be able to support you, because it's not only are the laws ridiculous, but I mean, it's just the whole cross-country agriculture, and we're going to get into that. So have you noticed, like, what's happening now? Like, just in your community, in your business, how are things affecting you? And have you noticed any like, what's the difference between, we'll say, even 10-15 years ago and now?
One of the major things I see that the small farmers are almost all gone, and the corn and bean farmers are crazy, and their sprayers going by all day long everywhere, airplanes, you name it, they're doing it. And the last 4 years since we got a different president, the thing that changed a lot is my fuel went from 87 cents a gallon on the farm to damn near $4 a gallon on the farm. My parts damn near went up 500-600%. Our price of equipment has more than doubled or tripled, and our beef prices are basically, they came up maybe 75%, but it's not enough to cut the cake.
Yeah. Holy so basically you're getting squeezed from every side.
Yep, and then you got the community. We have no communities to support us anymore. I mean, I tell the people they're just basically not coherent or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
That's put as gently as I can gently put it. But you talk to people, they just don't get it. And the hardest thing for Americans to do is to cook their own food in their house. Where in 1930, 98% of us cooked their own food in our house.
Yeah.
And now, and they grew their own food.
Yeah.
In 1930. Now it's the hardest thing to do. I got to cook this stuff. And the saddest story I seen when 20 everything locked up.
Yeah.
People filled their freezer full of beef, and it's still full.
Wow. Yeah.
Too much work to cook it.
That's just crazy. And you know, like on my, like, you know, in my space, in my channel, you know, obviously people adapting a carnivore diet, and you know what I try and stay away from a lot is the dogma. The point is, and we'll talk about this too, because we talked a little bit about the glyphosate problem, but my thing is ancestral, local, seasonal, like how you find the community is just not being helpful, let alone it's just gone, it's gone null. Like no one's helping no one's buying local food. Is that what you're saying? Like at all?
Yep. Yep. I mean, there's maybe, I wouldn't even say 0.01%. I mean, I wouldn't even consider it 1%. Maybe 1% of 1% that are actually buying because they just happen to go to town and there's a farmer's market. Oh, pull in there, check it out.
Yeah.
Right. But it's such a small percentile, it ain't even funny. And my mother, who's 86 years old, I was talking to her the other day how important it is to grow your own food and watch your labels, know how to read your labels, and stay the hell out of grocery stores. And she told me when she grew me up 40 years ago, 30 years ago, we never had to read labels. And I told her, I says, well, what do you mean? She said, everything was good. God created everything. Everything was good. What do you mean? And I said, they genetically modified all this crap.
Yeah.
And I started explaining to my mother, who's 86 years old, that's coherent, got a mind like a razor, just unbelievable. And I see 20-year-olds that ain't as sharp as she is.
Yeah.
So what happened here?
Yeah. Well, you know, and that's, you know, I'm seeing it all the time. Like we spoke about this briefly yesterday. You know, in the grocery stores, when I'm looking around, you know, that's probably why, for the most part, I don't buy vegetables. I mean, the carnivore diet. It's a tool in my mind, and it's not that I'm against anything that's God or Mother Nature intended. It's the fact that I can't get it now. So if I had the chance to obviously grow my own vegetables, I would probably eat them, you know, but it's like you're saying, it's gone. You look around the grocery stores and there's no food in carts. There's none. It's all processed garbage. And you know, this is a very big deal that is crossing borders and crossing the world. And have you heard much about the farmers in Europe and what they're going through?
Yeah, you know, and it's getting, at least they got a set of testicles that they're taking a stand. Because
Yeah.
most people that I see around here, they just go with the flow. You know, they're giving the steering wheel to whoever will take it, and they're just going with for a ride. Maybe their eyes are shut. I think they're heading right down a cliff here.
Yeah.
Don't even know. I mean, it's some crazy stuff what's going on. But yeah, in Europe, I'm pretty happy, pretty proud of what they're doing. That they're taking a stand like they are.
Because a lot of people, I don't think, you know, I try not to watch mainstream media as much as possible, because obviously, you know, we can talk about the corruption there too. I mean, the push for, you know, the corporate driven agendas. But Europe is on fire. All the countries are basically revolting. The farmers are you know, in Germany at one point they were like, they don't even want the laws changed. They want the government changed. And I don't think anybody's heard this. And the cool thing about talking to you, Michael, is that's Canada. That's our attitude as well. Is what I've been talking when I'm talking to my friends and family, they're unaware of this stuff. They have no idea the government push on stopping local food. And it's obvious and it's happening. And you know, stories like yours, I really believe have to be out there because people need to hear this. They have to stop just letting things go. It's not, they're going to be, and I mean, we've talked about nutrition and, you know, I think we're both coming from the same point where, you know, meat is a superfood. Like in my mind, a superfood is something that could sustain you, let alone optimally. And beef, meat is one of those things. And, you know, the push against, you know, the plant-based agenda, the corporate driven stuff is all pushing us against this meat. And, you know, if people don't wake up and listen to Michael, right, like he just said it from Minnesota, saying the same things that we're facing here, but nobody's talking about. And, you know, how long do you think you can keep going, Michael?
Well, I take my beef operation day by day,
Yeah.
but as a country, the reason why people can get by, in Minnesota here, they give free lunches for everybody in public schools now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and very, very little beef on the menu at all. It's
Yeah.
basically carbs, fruits,
Of course.
sugars, pre-made chicken, if it's even chicken, God only knows whatever it is. But
Yeah.
how we can get away with the diet we're eating today, because most people are doing nothing.
Yeah.
They're not doing no physical work. When I grew up, we picked rocks, we handled hay bales.
Yeah.
Now, around my area, we drive down the road, they're packing the rocks back in the ground with a big roller. There's kids are not out to picking rocks anymore, but maybe now they consider child abuse.
Yeah.
Because they're physically hurt. Who knows? But years ago, even the manual labor jobs, most of them are gone.
Yeah.
You know, I had a young family that came to me last 2 years ago, wanted to buy beef from me. They bought it. She come back a couple weeks later and she says, you know, my kids won't eat this stuff. And I said, well, how can that be? In schools, they don't serve it. They don't know what it is. And I told her, make them earn it.
Yeah.
She's like, well, what do you mean? She said, I don't live on a farm. I said, get them outside. Have them cut the grass, have them rake the grass, go for a walk, go for a bike ride, and make them earn it. They'll be hungry. They'll eat it. You know, it's in our DNA. There's no way escaping it. It is in our DNA, you know. And I'll tell you a little story. A couple months ago, I end up doing a fast in a day. First time in my whole entire life I ever did this. You couldn't eat nothing, no fat, but you could eat vegetables and greens. I tried it. I did it I just wanted to see what the outcome was. An 8-year-old boy could have kicked my ass.
Yeah.
That's how wimpy I was by the end of the day by not eating any fat. I already went through and fasted from meat, but I always ate like butter or lard or fat. But boy, you cut the fat out of my diet. Oh, that's a death sentence. I don't even know how these people are getting up and walking.
That's interesting. You know, like the pushback from this, like, and it sucks because it's almost like there's camps, right? Like all of a sudden now there's the carnivore camp and the community. But what the most important thing is, like what you just said, is what fat brings to the table. It's nutrition. It's not just weight or fat, you know. And obviously fat makes you fat. I'd be obese. I live on meat and fat. You know, I've been doing it for 3 years and I'm in the lightest weight since high school, you know, and it's not a coincidence. And you know, people look at me and they go, "Oh my God, you're so disciplined." I'm like, it's not. I'm eating the best food on the planet that I can afford. And my body is thanking me for it. That's it. It's not rocket science. And it's neat that you say that because a lot of the people that I'm trying to help and coach, like, don't fear fat. And if you listen to the farmer, Michael right here, you know, he does the hard work every day and he needs fat. So that's amazing. That's something that, you know, I've noticed with our prices as well is, you know, I buy pretty much 5 things. You know what I mean? Like I pay attention to the beef prices, maybe a little bit of pastured pork and chicken if I can, you know, find some good organic, like pasture raised chicken, eggs, butter. And I see the prices in Canada, especially. We'll talk about this too, because this is mind blowing when we talked about prices. Everything that I buy is up $2, $3, $4, and I've seen it happen in real time. So over the last 3 years, I've been eating pretty much 5 things, you know, and now I'm seeing these prices increase ridiculously. And, you know, I'm not making any more money, and the prices are going up $2 or $3, $4 with everything you buy, then you include your gas, your rent, and like everything that you need for your life. I can only imagine working on and having to, all this stuff just super compiled, like with a farmer. And let's talk a little bit about that. Let's talk about the prices of beef. How have you found, like, what's happening in the States, in Minnesota anyway, with the prices?
So the price of beef has gone up, the commercial market uptown. I
Yeah.
would say went up about 100%, but it basically had to, because there's so many. Average age of a beef producer is old. I
Yeah.
mean, we're talking maybe 70s.
Mhm.
They're old,
Yeah.
and that's in a big cattle country. So it's astronomical how old the people are getting. And the next generation, younger people, it's all about money. It's not about their calling.
Yeah.
you know. So it's, you go get a trade and you just kind of bum through life a little bit because this is my occupation, it's not my calling. But guess what? If you ain't gonna go in making money, they're not gonna have no part of it. They're gonna be a crazy man like me and just go along with the calling and do whatever it takes to do it.
Yeah.
And keep on plugging through. But yeah, the price of this beef, I don't know if they're trying to get it that we can't afford to eat meat and that people get away from eating meat.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, I think in 10, 15 years, I'll tell you a little story. When I was 15 years old, I was going to school, the public school, and it was You and Your Future. So this is 31 years ago. Okay. The teacher asked everyone, what are they going to do when they grow up? So I raised my hand. I said, I'm going to be a farmer. And everyone looked at me, like 90 students looked at me and they're like, what? So I'm going to be a farmer. And she asked me, what are you going to do when there are no farmers? And I'm 15-year-old, common sense kid, grew up in the country, youngest of 9, 8 brothers picking the crap out of me, learning how to battle for myself. And I told her, I says, what are you going to eat? She said, they're gonna do things that you won't need the American farmer for. And I quit school. The next 2 weeks, I quit school and I asked my mom to homeschool me. She was 55 years old at the time. She said, yeah, we'll homeschool you. So
Yeah.
she homeschooled me. She said, I would have quit too, saying something like that. Now, 31 years later, you tell me how she knew what's happening today. How the hell did she know that?
Interesting, eh? I mean, it's unbelievable when you look at, like, I know a lot of people don't know this, but over the last few years, like the amount of push and pressure on the meat producers, like, just let alone poultry, like the common stuff that was happening. Like, I don't know if you heard about this, but I've heard that there were more fires in meat processing plants in the last 3 years than the history of mankind. Why? You know what I mean? Like, it's just these random fires are popping up all over the US and Canada at these big plants that are producing meat. And, have you heard much about that?
Yeah, I heard a lot about that. And one thing I was going to tell you, and I don't know how it is in Canada, but this is America. And this is what I learned when we went through this shutdown in 2021, 22.
Yeah.
Most of the big meat packing places, employees,
Yeah.
are illegal.
Okay.
So if in the United States in 2020 they want to shut down the borders so nobody could come in.
Yeah.
If they would have did that, there would have been a starvation within a week.
Wow.
Because most all the employees in these meat packing plants are illegal. So because you can't get Americans to do that kind of work.
Yeah. Jesus.
So that's why, again, you support your small local producer. You know what he's doing. You support him, because if this happens, no doubt in my mind, it will happen. The more smaller farmers they get rid of, the more bigger farmers come into business, they will have to get paid for their food.
And
Because
then,
they're not going to be a crazy person like me and go get a job when you're short money and go do what you got to do.
yeah. And like, for everybody listening that's in Canada, don't be fooled here. This is not a thing that's happening in the US alone. Canada is feeling the same way, and I'm going to start talking to some farmers around here as well. But this is not a US agenda. This is a globalist push to close out and push away all the farmers. And is it a coincidence that, Michael, I don't know how you feel about this, but we're going to get your insights on this, but what I've noticed was, all my life, I mean, I laugh with my mom. I was a meat and potatoes kid. And my mom was like, you need to eat vegetables. My whole family was worried about me. They're like, oh my God, he's not eating vegetables. And now, like cut to 40, almost 50 years later, my mom's like, I'm so sorry. I should have just let you just be a kid. And like now she's a carnivore, I'm a carnivore. And she's just like, wow, was that? But what they've done was they've convinced us. First of all, I remember when I was a kid, maybe you do too. They went low fat. Low fat was the first thing to, like, they said, hey, everybody should be eating margarine, skim milk, like this is, whatever. And then they pushed eggs out. They said eggs were bad for cholesterol, eggs were bad. So this was kind of in the 80s. And then they said red meat will kill you. They said like too much red meat's bad. And this started happening in the 80s. And then this push for red meat, and then people didn't stop eating it. So what happened? Now this whole push with, well, it's bad for the planet. Too many cows cause, climate bullshit. And we'll talk about that in a second too. And then now it's, it's the cost and everything else trying to push this beef. And it's not a coincidence that this has been happening over decades. And what have you noticed about that? Like just in your experience?
So the thing that I noticed a lot was that I have to, when I sell my meat, you really got to sell it. You got to talk to people and explain things to them. I had a guy actually 3 days ago. He was over with him and his wife, and we were talking, and he's like, yeah, I like to buy beef, but I just can't afford to buy it. And I'm like, okay, what do you buy? He's standing in my yard with a bag of Dorito potato chips, right? Yeah. He's drinking a 20-ounce bottle of Mountain Dew, right?
Yeah.
And he's got the kids, I hate to say it, with hardly any teeth in their mouth.
Yeah.
And he said, I can't afford to buy meat, right? So I told him, I said, bag of Doritos is about $5 to $6. Bottle of Mountain Dew is $2.50 to $3. So 6 and 3 is $9, right? You can go just say to almost any low grade hamburger shop and still get hamburger for $4 a pound. Brown a pound of hamburger for $4. For me, that's about all I would have to eat in a day. Yeah. Maybe another half a pound in the afternoon. Yeah. So a pound and a half for $6, I'd be full all day long. Yeah. Along with drinking water. So he just spent $9 what he's eating. I'm for sure he'll eat that 2 to 3 times more. Yeah. So he's 9 times 3 is $27, and he said he can't afford to buy meat.
No doubt.
Beef.
Yeah.
So it's just basically trying to teach people to think for themselves. You got a thing between your ears called your brain. Common sense.
It's fueled on fat, by the way.
It don't come common anymore to people. So yeah. I mean, it's a God-given talent. It's there. Let's use it. Come on, wake up, guys.
Yeah, and I find like a lot of the people that I'm trying to help. Like I know that we talked about like sort of how much you eat and what we may get into that for sure. But when I break that down for people as well, is like, listen, I eat once a day, maybe twice sometimes. And I eat like, a pound to 2 pounds of beef or like, whatever equivalent in meat. And here in Canada, which we will talk about too, is the prices are a little bit more expensive, which is ridiculous. But I mean, okay, so for instance, I'm spending $25 on a decent cut of beef, maybe some ground beef and some eggs. One meal, $25. Well, like you say, that's a combo at McDonald's. That's you know what I mean? Like, especially nowadays, Jesus Christ, you're like, we're paying, almost $20 for, fries and Coke. Like realistically, the beef, because I'll tell you about a little trick we do at McDonald's here. I teach people is the beef's actually pretty good. They don't really adulterate it as much as people think they do. And I can go to McDonald's and I can get a quarter pounder patty. In Canada, the combo is like $18 or something. And the quarter pounder patty itself is $2.50. So I order six patties to 8 patties, and it's $15, $16. It's like, what? How is this the price for everything, right? And that's the thing that what you're saying too is that people don't realize how much money they're spending on junk. And that shit's not food, man. Like
Yeah.
that's killing you slowly. And that's what we can both agree. I don't care what side of the fence you're on about diet. That whole processed food, like ultra palatable, hyper processed food, the shit that has ingredients in it is killing you slowly. And you have a story actually. You were telling me. I'd love you to share it about how you what happened with your health and like why you're still here actually. Do you mind
Oh,
sharing?
so basically I was like you, grew up meat and potatoes,
Yeah.
most of my life, and mainly ate pretty healthy, as good as I could. Stayed away from the sugars and the corn syrups and all that garbage. And about 6, 7 years ago, I was on a guy lifted me up because it was real windy. I couldn't strap a load down, so a guy lifted me up. I was about good 16 feet off the ground, and the skid loader gave out, so I fell head first. I caught myself and landed on my legs. Thank God for that. And I end up hurting my knee and my hip. And I left there, walked away with
Wow.
no injury at the time.
Yeah.
And the next day is when I got the inflammation everywhere and I couldn't hardly walk.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to the local chiropractor, talked to him, and the next day I had to do a load because I also drive trucks. So I went and did a load, and I'm at a truck stop and I'm hobbling, pay for the fuel, whatever. And here comes up this trucker. I mean, he's like a 1960 trucker, right? The guy ain't got an ounce of weight. I'm skinny as a razor, hair. He looked like he was like 40 years old, and he tells me I just turned 79, right? And I
Yeah.
looked at the guy and I'm like, he said, "What happened to you?" I said, "I fell so far to the ground." He said, "You must have been eating pretty healthy." And I said, "Well, yeah." I said, "I wouldn't have been walking. I wouldn't be to work today if I didn't." So he told me, "Have you ever tried the carnivore or caveman diet?" And I'm
Yeah.
like, "What's that?" And he starts explaining to me, and I start thinking in my head, I'm like, so I got to eliminate basically 2 slices of homemade bread from my wife. I love meat. I can just eat meat. And he's like, "Yeah, give it a try." So I went home, went to the chiropractor, he adjusted, did whatever. He said, "I want to see you in 2 days. You might need surgery on this thing. It's pretty bad."
Yeah.
So I went home, did a little research, ended up taking the 2 pieces of bread, throwing them away. 10 days, I lost 16 pounds. But I basically lived on bone broth, 2 to 3 quarts a day
Yeah.
with meat. Just lived on that. At the end of 3 months, all healed up. No surgery, no antibiotics, nothing, completely healed up. And kind of healthy as I can be. End up losing like about 40 pounds on it. And since that 6 years ago, I just maintained my weight. It's like
Yeah.
I ain't losing no more weight,
Yeah.
but pretty awesome, man.
Well, and that's pretty much just grains, like just getting rid of the grains, which, you know, we don't have to really go there because I think a lot of the people even the people that will follow this and watch this will understand that, these grains, especially nowadays, which we'll get into pretty quick here, what they're doing to the corn, wheat, and soy. Now, Michael, just for the record, is a farmer. He understands this stuff. And I want you to pay attention to this because we're going to start to talk about glyphosate. Now, Michael, you're against all that stuff. You're against the chemicals. You try and do your best to keep the grass and the cows or the animals that you're raising and the stuff that you're doing completely organic as best you can. But can you tell us about what's happening around you now with that stuff?
So, like all around me, basically, I've seen a lot of difference in the last 30 years on the color of the soil because they do corn, and as a rotation, they'll do beans, which ain't even a rotation.
Yeah.
And it's roundup, corn beans for 30 years. And the color of the soil is completely changing. A lot of erosion is just astronomical. All the topsoil is just washing off the ground,
Yeah.
And that's the thing and the amount of chemicals. And we got bee farmers in the area, and they're telling me all the time that this is the worst they ever seen it. They can't keep their bees alive.
Yeah.
And old neighbors told me the other day, he says, there used to be so many pheasants out here before they started spraying this crap. There's 200-300 pheasants out here,
Yeah.
and the wildlife, on and on, and how everything's kind of changing with the agriculture. And it's just amazing how so many people are not acknowledging this, even farmers. But I mean, they pushed it so hard and so fast for so many people that it's all about money at the end of the day. I mean, if I would have fell into the groove, I'd be a pretty wealthy man today.
Yeah.
You know, like they say, follow the money.
Yeah.
You know, for big pharmakita, big
Yeah.
farmers, grocery stores, it's
Yeah.
one nice vicious circle.
Of
And
course.
how beautiful they painted it.
Yeah. And like that's where, okay, a lot of the people that I you know, that I'm helping, and they don't understand what Michael said there about the soil. Like, the world is losing topsoil. The world. We are going to be like, there is some crazy statistic out there that the world is in trouble, and our topsoil is like exponentially depleting. Not to mention what happens when they spray that stuff. The Roundup, the glyphosate, you know, they're the same thing. The Roundup is the commercial name for glyphosate, which is the chemical name. It's not that they can prove that it's good or bad. I don't like, and that's only one side of it. The fact is, when they spray this, they destroy the soil and the plant's uptake of nutrients in from the soil. And that's everything. That's not just what they're growing. That's affecting ecosystems. And then you got the mycelium, the fungus, all the turnover of the soil is just basically being destroyed. So the animals eat that. We eat the animals. If Roundup's there, and now I've heard, I'm not exactly sure this, but I've heard now we've gone so far with this Roundup ready cropping and monocrop agriculture that it's in the cycle of water. Like, it's in glaciers. That's what I've heard. I've heard that, you know, there's no way the world needs to stop all of it in order to regenerate. And it's almost too late. Like, everybody's got a little bit of this in them. So I don't know. And you notice that they spray everywhere, right? They don't just, like when a crop duster sprays the crops, they're spraying their stuff. It's in the atmosphere, right? Like, do you feel it?
Yep. And in the spring, they start spraying now in May.
Yeah.
And I can smell it.
Yeah.
So I go down the gravel road, I can smell it. And last year we were on a severe drought here.
Yeah.
I couldn't escape it.
Yeah.
I used to sit out on my front porch doing coffee. I can't even sit out there last summer without when it was so dry. It's everywhere. It's like, and I heard something the other day that if we quit spraying today, it'll take 100 years to get it out of the atmosphere.
Yeah.
And they also said at this meeting I was at the other day that 1 inch of topsoil from erosion takes 100 years to get it back. 100 years. So basically, right now, if everybody would eat like me and you, we would have a starvation.
Yeah.
Because the average American only eats 50 pounds of meat a year.
Yeah.
You know, I'll eat that in a month and a half.
Yeah, no doubt.
You know, pretty easy, 50 pounds of meat. So people don't understand, if we go away from this, it's a whole new deal.
And you know and that's a good point too, because like a lot of this stuff, like, I mean, have you heard of Joel Salatin and Alan Savory? Like, obviously they're pretty big people in the regenerative farming space. They're trying to teach new farmers, if they even exist in the world, how to regenerate their soil and their land. And you know, the beautiful thing about like cows, they can graze anywhere. Even the stuff that we can't even grow on, that we can't crop on, they can graze on.
Yep.
So what people don't realize is, you know, this is circle of life things. Like these animals, I honestly believe the ruminant animals, all the deer, elk, bison, God forbid, like, oh, the bison, the cows, their stomach system turns this plant matter, the cellulose, we'll call it, like the fiber that we can't consume, turns it into magical nutrition for us. And they can't, and I think honestly, like deep down inside, I think that's what they're scared of. And that's why they're pushing these animals to, you know, the brink, right? Like, why else? Because they do magical things that other animals can't do.
So basically, I'm going to explain a couple things with beef. If just to kind of, I'll make it as simple as I can.
Yeah.
So you take a beef cow,
Yeah.
It's complete miracle how they do it. So they take a beef cow, and when they eat grass and only grass, they have 4 stomachs.
Yeah.
So when you feed them amounts of corn, large amounts, they have 1 stomach.
Okay.
So they just utilize 1 stomach. So basically, when you feed them the grass, they utilize 4 stomachs. With that, you get an astronomical large amount of vitamin K2, which is complete cancer fighter. K1 is vegetables like cabbage and all that stuff. But K2, the way I understand, the only way you can get that is out of 100% grass-fed beef. So you got K2. And how I learned this with the stomachs, when the butcher would come over and butcher these animals for me, he's like, man, you got huge stomachs. What's the deal here? I never seen them this big. I told him grass-fed. So he starts looking in and he's like, your animals use all 4 stomachs? I said, yeah, they're grass-fed. He's like, yeah, when you feed them corn, it's just basically a 1 stomach and just goes through them. And the other thing, now omega-3s, which we want, omega-6s we don't want. Omega-3s are 600 times higher in a grass-fed animal. Omega-6s, it flip-flops. Basically, then they're 600 times higher in a grass-fed animal. So it's basically completely a miracle how these animals can just go out there, take care of the ground, and what better for the soil? Hay growing out there, whatever the cows are consuming off that ground, it goes through their system, it goes out their back end, it goes right back into the ground. So basically, you're not taking nothing off the earth.
And for all the people that think that the cows are, bad for the environment, give your head a shake. Really, like who was around here first? Think about the millions of buffalo that we basically ran instinct, running around pastures. There was no pollution problems back in the 1800s when the buffalo are, back in history when the buffalo were running free. And yet we think cows are the problem now. Like, come on, like, let's get real. That argument just falls on its face, and it pisses me off, frankly, that people would even say that cows are bad for the environment. Oh, they're such a burden. Shut up. You know what? You know what's a burden? Humans. Like, and I don't mean the ones like us. I just think, come on, like, let's look at our pollution and figure this out and talk about it logically, because that's just irrational plant-based bullshit that just doesn't make a lick of sense when you look at it from a natural standpoint. And what you're saying there, like, really, like, I often talk about the omega-3 to omega-6 ratio. And, we do need omega-6s, but not in the amounts that they're giving to us, especially if you're eating these seed oils and vegetable oils. Your omega-6 ratio naturally, or omega-3 to omega-6 ratio naturally, should theoretically perfectly be 1-to-1. But, 1 to 4, maybe 1 omega-3 to 4 omega-6s. What I've heard and what I've read and researched is the North American people are 1 omega-3 to 20 or higher omega-6s, which is inflammation, which is disease. Your omega-3s are your brain function. So we talked about that earlier about people's brains not working. Well, this is a way to get it back there, peeps. So you've seen this stuff happening, and how come you can't just go to, like, say for instance, how come you can't go to Walmart and just sell your beef there?
They put federal laws against that. It's got to be USDA in order to do it, and it's a very complicated. They basically put every roadblock they could do to us small beef producers to market it the way, and then these people got brainwashed for so many years that that stamp of USDA, that's their God. If that ain't on it, we're not going to meet it. We're not going to buy it. It's got to be USDA. But what people don't understand, when it's USDA, there's how many more chemicals they put in the meat. I'm totally against USDA because I got a good, wholesome beef I grew up that's raised up, ready to go on your plate. Why should I contaminate or even ruin a good product with the USDA logo? And Tony, I got something I tell you. A lady the other day, or a guy came over the other day, wanted to buy some beef to me, and he's his first time eating meat, and he says, I don't know what's going on. I can't think. I feel like I'm losing my mind. And I just told him, I said, well, how do you lose something you ain't got? and he looks at me, and he kind of had a little smile, and he started laughing. He said, what's that supposed to mean? I said, we're going to get that mind that you lost back when you started eating meat. You
Nice.
need fat in your brain.
Yes. Yes. Spoken by the man who breeds the fat, who makes it happen. Like, yes, people, that's amazing. Because I think that's where we're at. So you can't sell your meat to the like to the general Joe public, we'll say, just because of all the bullshit and the bureaucracy.
Yep.
That's the long and short of it. Now, I know this for sure. In Canada is the same thing. We have, the FDA is obviously in the US. We have Health Canada that's our bullshit guidelines. And actually the government, I don't know how this is going to work, but right now there's a big push. Your president and our prime minister, they might as well be lovers. Like it's just bullshit. We have an egomaniac and we have somebody without a brain. You know what I mean? Like it's pretty bad. Like when you look at Canada and the US history of the leaders, holy, like, I mean, you just have to look. Like, we're not even gonna get into that because I don't want to get into any censorship bullshit, like from either side. But look at one of them. How can you imagine that he's the leader of the free world? And look at ours, who is this like egomaniac, preppy, pretty boy that is. He talks so much garbage. Like every time he opens his mouth, you just want to like. Oh, anyway, our political system right now, they're the conservatives, which is like your Republicans, the right, whatever that is anymore. But he's pushing for common sense, and he's what he's a couple things that he's trying to do is bring back, trying to cut out bureaucracy when it comes to common sense in life. And he's flat out said he is not a globalist. So and that's one thing that people out there in the US, like if you can get a hold of Michael, I'm gonna get all his information and post it below. I want you to get a hold of him because I looked into shipping your beef to Canada. Oh my God. I need like all these certificates and bullshit. Like it's just not gonna happen. Like it's crazy. Which I can bring butter and eggs, but I can't bring beef. So that doesn't make sense. Anyway, please support him. And I mean, if you can just reach out to him, buy his beef, and like taste the goodness. Because that's what I've found. And what I don't know, do you ever get to taste other farmers' beef? Or you just
Yeah. Yes, I'll do that once in a while. I'll stop in somewhere, try their meat, try this, try that. And one thing, I'm not out here to condemn the farmers that feed their animals corn or soy.
Of course, yeah.
Because truly, I believe you're better off to eat that meat than to eat vegetables.
Yes.
Because the cow has a liver, and all these organs that they can filter that out in their self. So you'd be better off to eat a corn-fed animal than vegetables any day of the week, because the vegetables, what filters a cabbage head that got sprayed on?
Yeah, exactly. Nothing. Yeah. So, and that's a good point. Like, we'll talk about that a little bit if you don't mind.
Yep.
Like the grain-fed stuff, like I tell people, like it's sad because the logic side of this stuff and like diet and lifestyle get thrown right out the table. And when you look at it from a logical standpoint, grain really, I would say, was a marketing tool. Like it was a market to get a different flavor, to get marbled, the marbling in the muscles. And okay, here's a fun fact, everybody out there. What drives, Wagyu beef and all like well marbled beef? We're looking for the fat content, and the fat tastes better when it's grain fed. What do you think's happening to your muscles when you're eating grains and corn and all that stuff? Your muscles are getting marbled. So there's more fat in your body, in your lean tissue. So that's kind of just an aside. But I think they did that for the taste. And I agree with you 100%. I think if the worst case scenario, you eat the best beef you can afford. And if it's grain fed, don't die on the sword over it. Like I think it's a taste. So I know I've heard some farmers actually prefer to feed or finish their cows on grain to get different flavors, which, I mean, ethically and as close to God and Mother Nature intended, maybe not so much, but still, if it's the difference between somebody eating meat or not eating meat, by all means, man. And do you have local farmers that do that as well?
Yeah, we got local farmers that do that as well. But on the health stand side, try to find grass-fed beef.
Yes.
But on the other hand, it's way better than all the stuff to eat. But yeah, we got several beef producers in the area that do corn. But I want to tackle something with you a little bit different now. What
Okay.
I learned with grass-fed beef,
Yeah.
there's techniques that you can feed them really good hay,
Yeah.
and the marbling will be equal to,
Oh,
if
okay.
not better than corn-fed. And
Ah,
in the US in 1930-ish, 20-ish, that's when they introduced corn to beef. And
okay.
you can check it up. It's pretty easy
Yeah.
to find it.
Yeah.
And the reason why they did feed corn to beef, because they figured out that they can get fats in about 6-7 months faster.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny because you brought this up, because so when they came out and they started feeding animals corn, a couple of years later, they had to come up with supplements.
Oh, interesting.
There was never supplements before like 1935. And then guess what else happened after that? We got to come up with antibiotics.
Interesting.
And
hey?
and the thing that's pretty interesting, a lot of these cattle that get fed corn, because they're not meant to fed corn, they got to be on a high antibiotic diet, because when you butcher them, their livers are basically shot.
Yeah.
Because it's basically like you and me. Hey, we're gonna go out and hammer a 175 of Jim Beam and Jack Daniels every day, right?
Yeah.
What's
Yeah.
gonna happen to our livers?
Yeah, exactly. No doubt. Well, and all you have to do is look at foie gras. Like foie gras is the goose liver, fatty liver, foie gras in French. That's fat liver. They stuff corn down the throat and make this, they sick it. They give the goose diabetes, right? And then we eat it and think it's delicious. So that's exactly, that's exactly what happens with cows, and it just makes sense. Like so many things just clicked in my head here, because we get pushed into supplements. We get pushed into all these magical miracle things that we're supposed to be doing. But if you just eat a proper human diet, those things become unnecessary. And we chase all these polyphenols, carotenoids, and all these antioxidants and all these, but if you just get it from your diet, your food, all of a sudden you don't get sick. You don't need anything else. And it's funny how I love it when we bridge these things, because in the health and supplement space, like, they get you because they think, oh, this is the newest thing. You must have this to live longer. And it's like, well, it's not an essential nutrient. So why not focus with, say you're eating a complete grass-fed beef and fat diet. You are getting everything you need. All the essential nutrients, your essential amino acids, essential fatty acids, vitamins, minerals, all of it. What happens to your body? It works better. So why do you need these supplements? You don't need these things. So this also supports that. So if you buy Michael's beef, not only are you getting healthier, not only are you supporting local farms, not only is your body requiring less of the other shit, not only do you need less supplements, you don't have to spend the money on that. Do you see what that whole cycle? It starts with getting connected with your food. And man, it's, I thank you, because that's huge. I'm really, it sucks because my life is landlocked. I really wish, I'm starting to, I've got a friend. She has 20 acres of land. She's like, turning over hay. We've started chickens. I'm helping her out. We're thinking about this stuff. Her son's like a grass-fed farmer in Alberta. So, I would love to like keep you in the loop and stay connected to you, because man, you have just given, not only my audience, the people that I'm helping, my clients, just some insights here. And I really hope you pay attention to what Michael's saying here, because this is so vitally important to the human species. And I think let's talk about that a little bit. This is the stuff. We need this food. What do you think's going to happen? What do you foresee? And like, I don't want you to hold back, Michael. Like, if worst case, I could edit this out. What do you see in the next 10, 15 years? And I just don't want you to be brutally honest.
So Tony,
yeah,
you're about the same age as me. So just add 30 years on our bodies. We'll be in our 70s, almost 80.
Yeah.
Who's going to wipe your ass? Because the next generation sure in hell ain't. They'll be lucky if they make a couple more years. So just locally up in Old Pole, Minnesota here, I walked through the cemetery. The guys that ate their beef, ate their eggs, drank their milk, grew it on their farm, they lived to be 95 to 104 at home, cutting their grass, walking to church. That's how old they lived. their grandkids right now, they're having heart surgery. I just talked to the grandson that's 34, 35 years old, and another one that's 43 that had heart surgery. And I was talking to him, he's like, yeah, the doctor told me that's genetics. And I said, your grandpa, I talked to him. He was like 100 and some years old, and he's walking to church 2 miles away. And his heart was in perfect shape. His cholesterol was 300. Because then he brought up to me, oh, it's cholesterol. Hey, it's cholesterol. And I said,
Bullshit.
first he said genetics, and I brought up was grandpa. And I'm like, then he said, no, it's a cholesterol. So your grandpa's cholesterol is over 300. He told me.
Yeah.
I said, so how are you blaming this on cholesterol and blah, blah, blah? And then he's like, well, it's the meat. I said, your grandpa ate the meat.
Yeah.
He ate the cream. He ate the butter. Then this guy was kind of getting in the corner. And I'm like, so basically it's your horseshit diet you're eating. Your canola, your soybean. Oh, yeah, that's what I need to eat. And stay away from the butter. And he's blabbing. I'm like, what, do you want another heart surgery in 5 years? You know? And then the same thing for his other brother that was 37 years old, that had heart surgery and blah, blah, blah. And he's telling me, yeah, genetics, the doctors and all this stuff. And I says, you're believing this? Your grandpa lived to be how many years old? I mean, it's not even feasible possible, you know? So the way we're heading right now, I'm 46 years old, and I knowingly, without a doubt in my mind, I could outwork any 20-year-old today.
Yeah.
And when I was 20 years old, there was no 46-year-old that could even touch me. That's the power that was there.
Yeah.
But these younger generation, and I'm not saying anything crazy here, but it's sad because I got 8 children.
Yeah.
You know, and we go to outings with other children, right? And this is just an example. Last year, we're at a baseball field. It's about 95 degrees. I'm out there pitching the balls. About 15 minutes later, the kids are like, I'm going to go sit down on the bench. So I'm playing with my kids. I'm like, where's everyone else? Oh, it's too hot out here. I can't handle this, right? They're kids.
Yeah.
When I was that age, get it hotter. Who cares? We're going to give it more, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the neighbors down at the property down there playing with them and different kids. And it's like, I can't hardly believe this. They want to sit in their phones and computers.
Yeah.
You know, they don't want to get outside and have fun, play with, you know, do things what guys do, you know, little kids, boys and girls. But no, for the future and the way we're heading, I mean, I just heard something the other day. One of my ladies that I do massage with, she ended up, I told her to go check out if she had leaky gut, because there's a lot of indications there. So she went to the doctor. She talked to the doctor, and I thought this was kind of crazy. The doctor said that majority of her clients with leaky guts are 18 years of age or younger. So she went home and she talked to me. I'm pretty sure I had leaky gut, blah, blah, blah. I kind of told her to switch over slowly, take something bad away, put something good in, you know. So 2 weeks later, she had to go back into the doctor. She lost 11 pounds. And the doctor's on her case like no tomorrow, how she lost this weight. She said, well, I cut out the sugar, started eating more red meat. And the doctor kind of went completely ironic on her and says, hey, how do you do that? How can you do that? How can you mentally even do that? How can you get away from the sugar and the corn syrup? And she said, I did. And how could you lose that weight? You took some pills. And she said, no, I didn't take no pills. I'm just eating real food.
Yes.
The doctor couldn't believe.
Yeah. I mean,
but go ahead, Tony.
That I'm seeing over and over and over again. For one thing, like people that are eating real food are healing. And the other thing is, just from my experience and just from what I've gathered in my research and what is happening, especially with this modern food system, if you eat grains, I would almost guarantee you have a leaky gut. It's not even a question. You know, you can go down so many rabbit holes with that. And whether you want to call it the spraying of the chemicals, whatever the grains are doing, the gluten, the sugar content, all of it. If you're eating grains, you will have a leaky gut in some aspect. And that is like, that's amazing that you see that and you say that. And I noticed that with kids too, man. Like I'm the same way. But while I was in school studying to be a nutritionist, that I gave up because it was bullshit. I had to work a moving job. Like I had to work with a moving company, and I'm 48 years old running circles around the 25-year-olds. Like, what's going on, guys? Like, you guys should be just destroying me. And it was not like that at all. And it's like, they were like, come on, man, we need to eat lunch. I would never take breaks. I didn't have to take breaks. I'd work a 14-hour day lifting heavy shit up and down stairs, and they're looking at me like I'm this crazy guy, and I'm like, what? Like, this is, to me, I feel normal. I don't even feel like it's, I mean, obviously there was some days that were physical, but come on, man. And I noticed that. And it's so funny that you say that, because even with the heat, and I notice people are all like, it's too hot, it's too cold, it's too, I'm like, I find my thermostat pretty regular. Like, just, I'm aware it's hot, but like, we have hot days, but so what? Who cares? Just get on with it. So do you think that's, what do you think that the reason is, Michael? I'll let you answer this one.
Well, it's the nutrition that the kids are getting fed in school. I mean, 5 meals every day going to school.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the number one reason why I homeschool our kids.
Yeah.
It's because I don't want to mean the garbage that's in school. I'm not saying I'm perfect. My kids once in a while will fall off and eat some ice cream without any bad chemicals in.
Kids will be kids, right? Yeah.
Yep. So, I mean, that's one thing, but it's, when I was a kid, my mom might say, I don't feel good today. Get outside.
Yeah.
This is wrong with me. Drink some water. Hey, get outside and drink water. That's what's the number 2 healers. My mother would tell me, get outside or drink some water, right? And I'd get outside or drink water. And it's kind of funny because when I was a kid, I asked my mom when I was going to school, Mom, how come you never send me up to my room when I'm naughty? And Mom would be like, oh, I ain't doing that. She'd tell me, go clean out a calf pen, get outside, go feed the cattle, go do this, go do that. She said, I'm not going to let you sit up in your room and waste your time. And the number one thing that I can tell you with our food and our health is, number one, you need to get motivated. People need to get motivated. They need to move their joints. They need to move around. Because 3 years ago, I was sawing wood down in the woods, and this lady, she went to school. She's a physical therapist / doctor, whatever. She bought beef from me. Yeah. And I'm sawing the wood. The kids are running through the woods, carrying the wood through the woods, over the fence, throwing in the bucket. She comes over there. I'm like, well, how's this going to go? This woman with this high degree, maybe pretty liberal. She going to chew me out because this is abuse or what? She comes over there and she looks at me. She says, this is one of the best things for your kid's mind. And I looked at him like, what are you talking about? She said, carrying them wood, going through them branches, learning their body, how to maneuver and how healthy that is. And I said, well, when I went to school, I was learned that reading a book is good for your mind. She said, that ain't true. Physical activity is the best thing for your mind. So, and to get back to the roots, you almost got to go through hell like I went through in order to get back to the roots.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these people have so much comfort. And like they say, the more comfort you get, the more comfort you want. Yeah. The more sleep you get, the more sleep you want.
Yeah.
Until you go through something where you kind of get a pile of shit handed to you.
Yeah.
And your eyes get completely whoop.
Yeah.
That's basically what's got to happen to a lot of these people is, we need hard times.
Yeah.
This is way too comfort. And that's what they keep on doing, giving money, doing this, doing that, keeping everybody comfortable. Strong people come out of strong times. We got World War II vets that went to World War II here. Yeah. They lived to be 100-some years old and they went through hell.
Yeah. And this is, I don't want to bring in the doom and gloom, but with the state of the world, that it's funny enough, no one knows what's going on. Like, I don't care what your political views are, but the world is on fire, basically, like chaos politically, organically, with our countries are all mayhem, and who knows what's going to happen. But what scares me most is that we've never, like, even in Minnesota, we've never faced like existential adversity as far as anybody trying to conquer us, anybody trying to take your stuff. Well, I'm going to tell you something. It's happening, and it's happening from the inside out. Our governments are starting to destroy us. They've invaded every system, and they're pulling our health away from us. And if you're right, if we don't start fighting back and just thinking about these survival mechanisms that it's our God-given right to be human, and all the old world things I'm starting to realize, and that's including my spiritual side, meditation, frequency, vibration, chiropractors, all this quackery is the stuff that matters. Outside in the sunshine, get your feet on the ground, do some hard work, it's just and I love that you say that, because that is health, and that makes your body healthier. It makes everything healthier, you know. And I think we got to get out of skip the dishes, get out of you know. It's, and of course it's easier said than done, and a lot of people are going to be screaming at this television, at the screen right now, saying I can't lose Amazon, like, you know, God, what happened before Amazon, right?
So Tony,
yeah,
I got to add something to you. I want to totally apologize to all the Native Americans in the world, because what your ancestors and my ancestors did to them completely destroyed them. They had paradise, whether it was in Canada, America, wherever. They had paradise. They had grass-fed beef, all the herbs, they had everything they needed to do. They lived to what, 125?
yeah.
Without
They don't even know how old they are. Yeah.
Our pharmacists. And I hate to say this to you, but the same thing that our ancestors did to the Native Americans are the same shit that our government is doing to us and our children. And we are the government.
Yeah.
They're not the government. We are.
Yeah. I mean, I love it that you say that, because, you know, not only have I been, you know, I sort of over the last, it's not a coincidence, since my brain's been working, I've been turning over the spiritual side of my life, and, you know, the love, the gratitude, the forgiveness. When you start realizing what we've done, especially ancestrally, to the peoples of this earth, and the powers that be that wrote the history books, it's disgusting. And, you know, I used to be a proud Canadian, because I thought Canadians were all that. We just found out some stuff over the last, you know, few 5-6 years about the schools that they, and I don't even want to get into it, because it's very, very disheartening. And what I'm shocked. I'm so shamed at being even unaware of this, that our government lied to us and what they were doing to the First Nations. And you are absolutely right. If we could just learn from them, because they had it all, and we took it away from them. And now the government, you're right. Like, that's a great analogy. The government, we were the government. Now the government's doing that to us, and we're getting stripped away from every, and it's yeah, that's not good. And man, I love that you're thinking that way. But listen, Michael, I'd love to do this, like, maybe even on a consistent basis, have you on, help out my people, like, get this awareness out there. It's been an honor meeting you and talking to you. And man, I really wish I could. I was like, first thing I did when we got off the phone was I tried to look at how I could buy your beef. You know, I really want to push this. Like, I'm gonna put this on my YouTube channel. I want everybody out there. If you're in the US, reach out to Michael. If you're eating beef, try his beef. You know, support this stuff. I know there's a lot of farmers in your situation, and you know, it saddens me to say that you're a dying breed, because we need you. And I bless you for the work you do, and the wisdom that you bring to the table. Like, just our conversation here, you know, it's easy for this kid from the city to say all this shit. You know, I've been preaching up and down about this stuff, but hearing it from where it comes from, it's been an absolute pleasure and an honor, man. And I will do everything I can to keep get your story out. And, you know, this is what it's all about, is listening to people that are doing it, and what's the dangers of the potential about not being able to do it, and what's going to happen. So if I'd love to have you back, and I'd love to have you talk to some of my peeps on some of the calls, but I will get his information. I will post it below, and please support him. And Michael, anywhere else people can get a hold of you? I just want you to, you know.
Well, basically, I basically just do my phone.
Yeah.
My phone number is 320-333-4937.
Yeah.
I'm kind of old school, so people can call me or text me.
Yeah.
You know, so that's
awesome.
The best way to get hold of me.
Well, that's cool. And I'll, like, obviously we'll talk again, and we'll get this stuff sorted out, because there's so much more I want to talk to you about. I mean, I know, you know, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know you got a busy Sunday ahead, so we'll cut this one. But, you know, we'll do this again, and we'll stay in touch. And I will, you know, from my end, we just got to blast the message. It's nice to meet a fellow human who respects humanity, and, you know, the foundations, you know, which I'm always talking about, is the stuff we've lost and all this shit, you know. the price of food, is it worth your health buying all this shit? And that's something that you can do, kill so many birds by just supporting local food and local producers. And man, pleasure. Thank you, Michael. I'm gonna
Later.
hold on.